Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Good morning. Get my hands up on screen. This morning, I'm going to say hello to the beautiful people green class at Ysgol of Bodhyfryd, Wrexham. I'm very, very sorry for my terrible pronunciation of your screen. But welcome, Wales. It's great to have you be booked for your by the world, and thank you, especially for sending me some brilliant questions. I will get on and answer them for you. So, first up, I'm looking up here because this is my first question. Hi, what's your favourite country you visited and why? Well, I get asked this question approximately 3,000 times a day, and I give approximately 3,000 different answers every single day. And the reason for that is that I love so many countries that I've been to. I like them all for very different reasons. And I choose them, my favourite depends on kind of what mood I'm in at the time. So, for example, right now, it's coming up to lunchtime, so I'm pretty hungry. So I right now would say my favourite country might well have been Japan. That's got some seriously delicious food. Also, it's a country I've never been to, I've never been interested in, I didn't know anything about it. And so to just get that on my bike was so surprising and different and new. So I really loved Japan. Ask me tomorrow night and I'll give you a different answer. Arthur, did you really only eat banana sandwiches? Well, my last answer's given that away a bit in that I enjoyed the food in Japan. I did eat a lot of banana sandwiches because they're cheap, they're nutritious, they're hygienic. You're not really going to get sick from them, even if you eat it in the dirtiest place possible, because they're wrapped in their own protective layer. Cheap, energetic, tasty. And I didn't eat as many as Tom. He really did go a bit over the top on banana sandwiches. I ate a lot of banana sandwiches, a lot of noodles, but generally I just ate whatever was cheap in whatever country I was cycling through. So my diet varied a lot as I went through lots of different countries. Hallie, did you actually drink milk and blood? So my book is true. I did. Is so. I I didn't even introduce myself at the start. How very rude. My name's Alistair Humphreys, and I'm the author of Boy Who Bite the World. And I did myself cycle around the world. It took me 4 years to do. And the story that you've read, The Boy Who Bite the World, is all of the things that happened to me, and I've just simplified them, put them into a book that I hope the children enjoy. And it's all true. I did all of those things, except the very, very start of the very, very first book. I did stay in that Maasai village as described, but I didn't have the famous milk and blood ceremony. But I started the book with that. And ever since I've done it, I don't know why I did that, because everything else in the whole book I did, but I didn't do that. So, no. But it's a sort of true story, except I didn't do that bit. I'm sorry. Katie, what was your favourite language that you learnt? Well, I learnt a few words in every language I went to, but the only language I got properly quite fairly good at was Spanish, because I had a whole year cycling through South America, and I loved being able to speak properly to people across that continent. So if I could have a superpower for cycling around the world, it would be that, to be able to speak every language in the places I went. That would be an amazing superpower for adventures and travel. Colin, do you wish you took someone with you so I wasn't lonely? Adventures on your own are lonely, and sometimes then it means you're a bit sad, sometimes it's quite boring, you're a bit homesick, you're a bit more scared. So I certainly wouldn't want to be all on my own at home, for example, forever and ever. But there's some good things about going on an adventure as well by yourself. It means you have to be brave to go and speak to the different people you meet in different countries, and you have to make more effort to make friends with the people you meet along the way. It's also more of a challenge. It's more difficult on your own. So if you manage to succeed on your own, you can be quite proud of yourself that you've done something difficult. So I think adventures on your own are more lonely, but they're also more of a challenge. They can be more exciting. And when you finish them, you can feel more proud that you did it that way. So I have done lots of adventures with friends since that trip, but I think I am overall happy that I did it by myself. Lewis, How long did it take you to write the book? Well, generally I write one book every year. What I try to do is I'd write for a few hours in the morning while my brain is still awake, and then when my brain starts to get a bit mushy and I get a bit lazy, I do other jobs for the rest of the day, like this, making this video. So it generally takes me about 1 year to write a book. Frankie, how did you celebrate your birthday? I did. My birthdays were rubbish. It was sad and lonely. Except one birthday when I was in Chile, in the bottom of South America, and I gave a talk to the school. And somebody asked me that question, and I said to the children, well, they have birthdays, they're rubbish. And the next day was a Saturday. I was staying at a teacher's house, and there was a knock on the door, and loads of the kids from the class had come around with a cake to give me a birthday party. So that was a really nice birthday in Chile, in South America. Alex, did you bike in the break? What did you do? Yeah, my bike broke lots, so I had to get quite good at fixing it with carrying bike tools and spare parts to fix things. I also had to use my imagination sometimes to fix things when I was far from a bike shop. So my tyre wore away till there was a big hole in it, and that means you get lots of punctures. So I went to a rubbish dump, and I found an old Wellington boot, and I cut the back of the Wellington boot out, the rubber bit, and I strapped that over the tyre, which worked quite well, but it worked every time I cycled. The front rack where I fixed on the bags, that broke, and I fixed it with a spoon. I tied my spoon on and tied it all together, which worked brilliantly, but it did then make eating my noodles a bit more difficult. And then when I got to a big city, I'd go to a bike shop and get it repaired properly. Gracie, what was your favourite place to celebrate Christmas? So I was away for 4 years. My favourite Christmas was probably the one in Jordan in the Middle East, which is a Muslim country. So it wasn't even Christmas, it was just a normal day. They don't really celebrate Christmas in the way that more Christian countries or Western countries do. So that morning I woke up in a beautiful desert landscape. I went to a little town and I treated myself to a falafel wrap for breakfast. I actually had two because it was Christmas. And I cycled through a beautiful desert landscape wearing my Santa hat. Nico, have you still got your bike? I don't. I kept my bike for a few years, but then I was getting a bit in the way in my house, and it was completely old, and it really was so broken it didn't even work. So then I just took it to the recycling and I chucked it into the tip. So it probably got recycled into baked bean tins or something. But I still have the memories. Ira or Era, I'm sorry, sorry for pronouncing your name wrong. Was there actually a scorpion in your shoe? I never actually put my shoe on with a scorpion in it, thankfully, but I did get into the habit every day of shaking out my shoe, shaking out my sleeping bag, and I did once have a scorpion in my shoe when I shook it out, so that's a good habit to have. That would be a bad start to the day to be stung on the toe by a scorpion. Emmy, what's your favourite food you tried? Oof! All these questions before lunch about food. Well, it's hard. Oh man, there's so many nice foods. I'll give you one that you can Google and maybe even make yourself. It's called khachapuri, which is spelt Khachau. I can't remember, but it's definitely KH to start with. Khachapuri. It's from Georgia, and it's sort of between cheese on toast and a pizza. But best of all, they eat it for breakfast there, so that's a really, really delicious cyclist breakfast. Scarlett, did you ever want to give up? Yes, I wanted to give up for about the first 2 years of cycling around the world. I was finding it really, really, really hard. And I just persuaded myself to keep going, and I knew that if I could keep going a bit longer, that I feel more proud of having got on with the efforts and kept going. And the more you do something, the easier it gets, and you start to get better at it, and you start to feel a bit braver and a bit stronger. So little by little, it did get easier, but I had to resist the temptation to give up early on. And I think that's normal. Whenever you try and do something new or difficult, it's always tempting to give it up. But if you keep going, it's often really worth it. Mila, or Mila? Mila, I think Mila. Did you have any help to plan your trip before you went? I read lots of books. I researched other people who've been on big expeditions. I went to the pub one night to meet a man who'd cycled from England to Australia. and he gave me lots of really helpful advice, and I just had to buy him some beer and some crisps as payments. That was really useful. But mostly it came from reading books and websites about people who've been on big adventures. Fionn, what was your favourite animal? Or definitely a whale. When I was when I was sailing across the Atlantic Ocean. I said rowing then because I'm currently writing a new children's book called The Girl Who Rode the Ocean, about rowing across the Atlantic Ocean. Tom's sister Lucy goes for an adventure. But I sailed across the Atlantic on the trip that you guys are reading about. And my favourite thing seeing on that was a big whale leaping out of the ocean. That's an amazing thing to see. William, what advice would you give to anyone who wants to be an explorer like you? My advice would be to start young, to start small, and to start today. So find some place near to where you live. You guys live near Wrexham, so you near beautiful countryside. I reckon within 5 miles of your house there is a wood or a hill that you've never been in or you've never climbed it. If you go and do that with your friends or family or school, then you are being an explorer. If you go somewhere you've never been before, you're being an explorer. You can begin that right now. You don't have to wait until you're old and you've got the time and the money to go on big adventures. You can start right now. And that really gets you into the habit of going on more and more adventures. But the other thing I would encourage you to do is to read lots of books on adventures. Reading books is what got me excited about adventure and taught so much about adventure. So go to your school library and see what other adventure books there are, atlases, and to start dreaming adventures of your own. Miss Mayo, if you were given the opportunity to do it all again, would you? Would I do it again? No. I'm very, very glad that I did it once. It was the biggest adventure of my life, and it changed my life. It set me off towards doing a job that I really love. It helped me start to become a writer, which I enjoy. It taught me so much about myself and about the world and what a good, kind place the world is. I'm so glad I did it once. But 4 years is a big amount of your life. It's a big slice of your life. And it was really hard, and it was lonely and difficult. And I think now I'd rather do an adventure that was a bit more fun and shared and enjoyable. So I'm glad I did it once, but once was enough. Miss Davis, would you encourage others to take this trip if they were given the opportunity? Would I encourage you to go on a big adventure? Yes, definitely. Going on adventures teaches you about the world, the climate, the environment, teaches you about the difference between rich people and poor people in the world, as in there are no differences in the people, but we have very, very different and unfair lives. It teaches you that the world is good and kind. It teaches you that you are stronger and braver than you might think you are, and that you can do amazing things. So it's really good for your confidence to go on an adventure. And it's also just brilliant fun and beautiful. So I'd encourage everyone to go on adventures, whatever you can manage, and I'd encourage you to start small by going on a short little local micro adventure this weekend. Right, I think that is all the questions. Let me zoom down. Yes, they are. Good. Thank you very much, everyone. I've really enjoyed these questions. They were fantastic. And now that I've answered them, I'm going to have my lunch. Thank you very much, and good luck with all of your own adventures. Bye, guys. Your stream will stop immediately, and you will no longer be live. Do you want to stop? Yes. Keep on waving until you click this button. End. Bye-bye.